special meeting of Osoyoos Town Council to order Monday, February the 3rd, 2014. We're just following the public hearing that was held at 7 o'clock, so I'll call this meeting to order at 7:20 p.m. And it's just to deal with the one item, and this is our bylaw, zoning amendment bylaw 1085.89, 2013 medical marijuana grow operations. And council has heard the input from the public, and we are going to deliberate and see what directions we take with this amendment bylaw that has been given first reading. So at this point, I'll open this to council, but before I open it to council, I'm going to ask a question of Mr. Shannon, our planner here, and this was dealing with the issue of being the M1 zone right beside residential. And this item was brought up, and I don't see that being dealt with in the bylaw. So how would the bylaw deal with this situation? Because every time we have interface, be it rural and farming or cattle and residential, there always seems to be, you know, unless there's that zone, how do we protect these people through this bylaw? Because the meeting tonight is about the bylaw, not about the individual applications.
That's correct. It's very important. I'm feeling that there's a little wee bit of confusion. This bylaw, the purpose of this bylaw is first of all is to define medical marijuana grow operation. As it says, it means the cultivation, growth, storage, distribution of the marijuana for medical purposes is lawfully permitted and authorized under the new federal marijuana medical purposes regulations. And what this bylaw goes on to do is it places the Section 7, the establishment under the establishment of zones, this discretionary use section into our zoning bylaw. And what it really does, it says that council may approve a rezoning application for a medical marijuana grow operation as a site-specific permitted use in the M1 zone. And then it goes on to say that to ensure that council is able to consider all the potential impacts with respect to the public safety and the health and the welfare and the nuisances and the smell and the environment, that the rezoning applications have to provide, they have to include the following information. If this bylaw was adopted, then somebody could come forward with a rezoning application on a property in the M1 zone. At that time, staff would prepare all this information that was submitted with the application, bring that application to council to add MMGO as a site-specific permitted use to a specific property. At that time, council would make a call whether or not they felt it was suitable for that site or not. And one of the criteria that you might use at that time is how close it is to those residentially zoned properties. You do not necessarily have to approve it. You would be able to review it on its merits when we bring that application, that next zoning amendment bylaw, as site-specific, as a particular property with going on the legal description for that property.
Okay, so
does that make sense?
Yes. So I just want to work through this a bit for clarity. So if we had already approved one 20 blocks up the road on an M1 site, and that one was, you know, there was no neighbors or anything, that would be fine. Yet if there was an M1 beside a residential area, we could say no. You could say no. And that would be on the site-specific purpose. That would be on a site-specific purpose, but it's also based on the merits of the application as it comes forward. You know, you'd weigh that application against all the merits and all of the criteria that the applicant would provide with the application that we're going to require, and then you would also have the ability to make your own judgment call on if it's too close to anything that's residential. You may also run into the situation with the caretaker units that are existing in some of the buildings up there right now. When and if we receive an application for a site-specific permitted use
you may use that as one of the criteria that you weigh that application against, no matter where it is.
Well, I see there is no caretaker provisions in our.
In the building, in a building that they wanted to have an MMGO in, we're making sure that the conditions of use will not allow a dwelling unit
Right.
in that building.
In that building,
Yeah.
right.
But council may want to weigh up how many caretaker units there are in the direct proximity to that building, that proposed building, if an application was to come forward.
So then, on the situation where it's coming forward, and it's beside a residential situation, there wouldn't be a public hearing, though, so.
Of course there would.
There would be?
Yes, there would. There would be a second bylaw that would come forward to add MMGO as a site-specific permitted use to a specific property. It would come forward in the same fashion that this one did. It would be brought forward by staff with as much information as that we could gather from the applicant and make sure all these bases are covered. And then we would bring that forward for first reading, and we would recommend that council schedules a public hearing, and we'd have another public hearing.
Okay, so I know in the audience tonight there is a potential applicant. So they would be applying for a specific piece of property to go into an MM situation. And that would generate another public hearing through that process.
That's correct.
Wonderful. Thank you. Is that, everybody has that? Councilor Rowe, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd also like to add that the component of this bylaw is certainly for the medical marijuana discussion that we're having. That particular circumstance where you have joining properties with that M1 could very much could still apply if somebody wanted to, and I'm going to choose something ridiculous. Let's say somebody wanted to put a nuclear power plant in there, for example. We would have that same right to, review and process and deny that application as well. It's not only for the medical marijuana component, it's for any undesirable thing that the council of the day may feel is not appropriate for that property as well. So I think we've always had that privilege to do that, and certainly I think that it would be properly evaluated, and like was indicated twice already, you would have an opportunity to come yet again to council and express your concerns about it as well. So.
Okay, and thank you for that information. I think that's well covered to the public. Councillor Ryan, please.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I have another question to Steve about our what we're proposing here. In our official community plan, we have a limitation on big box stores, and it's that they are a total of 30,000 square feet maximum. Now, in our bylaw, in our zoning bylaw that we're amending with this, other than the M1s that are near the airport where there are site-specific requirements, the general the bylaw generally says that there's only a minimum lot size in the M1 and a maximum building height. It occurs to me that it might be advisable to put a square foot limitation on this particular type of building in the industrial park, just as we have about big box stores where they might be located. So I'd just like to have your comment on that.
The minimum lot size is basically a calculation that's used for subdivision. If somebody hypothetically wanted to subdivide the property into 2 lots, one of the first things I do as the approving officer is to see if there's enough land to double that minimum lot size. You're correct that as it relates to the size of the building, the limitations are as it's stated. The limitations are the setbacks and the height that's defined in the bylaw. If council wanted to limit the maximum size of the buildings, it'd be something that staff would have to take probably considerable amount of time to research. There's probably very limited information out there to go on, because I don't think there's very many of these buildings or these businesses that have been set up yet. And knowing the size and the parameters of what they're considering, I'm not sure if we'd be able to, that information is going to be readily available. We could try to get some professional opinion on you know, a number to go for, shoot for, and that is a possibility. We could, I'm sure that there could be a limitation placed on that, but I don't think, in all the research that I've conducted, and I think I've pretty much read up on what every municipality of any significance in the province has been doing on this topic, and I haven't seen anybody going to that step yet.
Right, so you've looked at things that are, you looked at municipalities that are doing what we're doing, putting in some kind of a bylaw regarding this type of enterprise. I mean, it is new, and I guess anyone who would do it would be, you know, kind of guesstimating what if they were concerned about size. It seemed to me that since we had a limitation on size for, you know, for the big box stores, that it might be something to consider, because we are entering into a new venture here, you know, in terms of this type of industry. So I mean, we could use, of course, just by association, we could say, well, if we've used 30,000, you know, somewhere else, maybe 30,000 is a good number.
That's a very big.
That would be big.
That would be big.
Yeah. Or maybe we would look at the size of the lots there and see what our average you know, lot coverage is and what that square footage would be.
Okay, I don't know what we want to do with that, Councillor Ryan, but Councillor Plante, please.
I think it's a great idea. I think, though, again, I think that's on the second phase. If we get applications in, I think that's where we can start to deal with some of that size stuff. Until you get that, you know, that would be what I would think, that we're here to pass this bylaw for the MMGOs. But as far as the specifics, I think they'll come down, as far as what I got, even talking about location, is that we're going to get applications that are in. Those are things that we can discuss and have our administration really look into and research. Okay, they picked this area. This is the size they're looking at. Does that work? Comes back to us. I think this is just directly for the MMGO acceptance, and that we can deal with each application on the followings. But that's what I'm kind of getting from that.
Okay, and I can accept that, Councillor Plante. And Councillor Ryan, I think we'll direct staff as part of a separate motion to have a look at that. Okay, let's have a look at that cap, a size cap on this. Yeah. But in the meantime, I think we can go ahead and give this second and third reading tonight. That's what the ask is, to move this into second and third reading. I think we've seen some of the security out there for the questions that were asked, particularly on that residential, and another public hearing, and people getting a chance to say, heck no, we don't want it once we identify the sites. So this is the big item that we have out there now. Then as we're going to move forward, and there will be a direct application tied to a site, and that will trigger another public hearing. So if it was on that neighboring residential, we can deal with that. So where we're looking tonight is for second and third. Then there's still not adoption. That would be at our next regular council meeting that would be heading for adoption. So that's the process we're in right now. I see that the town has been, the security of the people and the questions that were here has been well dealt with. So I'll turn it over to council. Councillor Rhodes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make the motion based on the wording in option number 1.
Okay. Okay, and seconder, Councillor Plant. And could we have that read, please? Ms. Scott, please.
Moved by Councillor Rhodes and seconded by Councillor Plant, and resolved that zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.89, 2013, medical marijuana grow operations, MMGOs, be read a second and third time.
Thank you. Further discussion on the bylaw? Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Councillor Ryan, please, for the cap size.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'd like to move that we direct staff to investigate the desirability of putting a cap on buildings that are going to be for this use, the
Okay.
MM.
Okay, that was instruct staff? Yes.
Sorry?
Yes,
Instruct staff,
yeah.
yes.
Okay,
Wait, could I make a comment?
yes. Oh, we need a seconder. I'll take that seconder. Councillor McCordoff, it's on the floor. Councillor Rhodes speaking. Director Shannon. Planner Shannon.
I just wanted to remind everybody that if an applicant was to come forward now, the first thing they would do after this bylaw that we have in stream would have to be adopted, first of all, and then an applicant could come forward with the site-specific rezoning application. The way that we process rezoning applications in the town of Osoyoos is they have to be accompanied by a development permit if there is not a building there. So we would be taking the applicant through the entire development permit process, including the review of the form and character and the size of the building and the looks of the building and whether it's suitable for that site, et cetera, et cetera. We would take them to at great lengths to ensure that it wasn't going to, we take them through stormwater management to ensure that the whole site isn't covered by a roof, so that they can show us in the stormwater management plan that they can dispose of stormwater through calculations of impervious surfaces and pervious surfaces. I don't think the lots myself in the industrial park are of a size that we for the most part, that we would have that grade of concern about them maxing out something to a size that we would want to put a cap on. That 30,000 square foot building is a big building, and I don't think we would get anything near that size on any of the lots in the industrial park. So just something to consider and we're not going to have a lot to find. I'm not even aware of another building that's in use in up and running and in stream anywhere that I could go to find out what the size is that they need to operate with. I think that's all being worked out and worked through. I know that the regulations that we're speaking of, that as per the definition, that's a very, very thick document, and there may be something in there already about size.
With the Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, in the interest of being argumentative and out of due respect, I'm going to speak against the motion. I don't see any comparison between a big box store and any operation that would take place in our industrial park. I mean, big box stores come with a whole other dynamic that have nothing to do with this particular situation. Big box stores require massive parking lots and all those other kind of things, and I just, I'd have a hard time supporting this motion because of that. I just don't see how the two are connected in any way, shape, or form. And the official community plan is not necessarily the law of the land either. In this situation with the big box store is certainly open for debate and change, and I just don't get the connection between the two at all. I just, I'm kind of speaking just a little bit more to what Mr. Shannon said. I don't see any lot there at all where we'd come even anywhere close to it, and and be able to provide all of the amenities that would be necessary for a big box situation there. So I just, yeah, I would have to speak against that motion. I don't get the connection between the two of them at all. So.
Anything further? I'm leaning towards being in favor of the motion just because we don't have enough information. And an acre is 45,000 square feet. And I don't think we should be looking at the number. I'd be real happy if staff came back with some information for us. And you know, if we had an acre lot, that's close enough to 45,000 square feet. And if we had that back, I'm not saying we need a cap on it, but maybe that investigative piece of information for everybody. There might be a 2-acre site. You know, we have enough unknowns that I don't have trouble with that information coming back for a decision. And I certainly understand what Councillor Rhodes is saying. I don't think information hurts us. Anything, Councillor Rhodes?
Just a reminder that we are entering into the budget process, and I think the comments that Mr. Shannon made about time and resources and energy that will be put into this as well, and we all know that that information does, you know, it comes at a price. And, you know, a big box store is clearly defined. This really doesn't have anything to do with it at all. If those lots are an acre, they will not support a facility of that size simply because it's almost a 50-50 ratio of what's required for the parking to service the particular store. So, you know, once again, and I'm just doing it for effect, I just don't see how the two of them are connected. It's a draw on valuable budget money and time and resources from a department that, you know, has expressed that concern to us just recently. So.
Yeah, I don't have any trouble. I don't relate it to a big box store at all. I'm just looking at a size cap for the industrial park. Do you want a 5-acre show up there? I guess that's the question. And at one point, I happened to the proponent did speak out at that 30,000 square foot, so I'm sort of interested in that anyway. Councillor McCordoff, let's wrap
Thank you.
it up and go home.
I just think that our council has and planning department have done a terrific job in getting this whole zoning amendment bylaw off the ground. I was listening to CBC this morning, and down in Vancouver, they're way behind where we are from what I can understand. And I think that because of that, maybe we're kind of leading the charge in this area. And I think we've done thank you, Mr. Shannon, that we've done a great job in trying to put forth all of the considerations and the concerns that we might have with this new MMGO. And I think that any time that we have something such as the size of the building that might affect our judgment, I think it's worth looking at. So I am in favor for that reason.
Anything further? So we have a seconded motion on the floor instructing staff to report back with information as to a size cap on MMGO operations in the industrial park. Is that right? Anything further? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We'll talk to Director Cunningham, or you can, or he can get the minutes of the meeting and take it from there. Anything further? Motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Ryan, Councillor Rhodes, all in favor? Good evening, folks.